All right, Jennifer Crane is standing by. She is the founder of Connexion Quebec Public Affairs and a political strategist. And our feature is brought to you, of course, by the good folks at Guaranteed Industries, reminding you when it comes to cooling or heating, residential, commercial, and industrial, they have been doing this for more than 75 years. For the best Lennox home comfort systems out there, call Guaranteed 514-342-3400 or online guaranteedindustries.com. All right, Jennifer, lots to choose from today. Let me start with fallout from the by-election yesterday. We talked a lot about this. I was asking listeners because, of course, it was only about a 40% voter turnout. I said, of course, but that's considered actually pretty good, apparently, for a federal by-election. We heard from all the parties today. We played on our news, I think, just a clip of Justin Trudeau saying, well, we have a lot more work to do, which is the standard fare for any time they lose anything, including the last by-election in Toronto. What do you make of what happened last night? Does it change anything?
Well, I don't think it particularly changes things because things were already going bad. The people are talking about this on the streets of Montreal today, literally. I heard the employees talking about this at the SAQ on Côte-de-Neige, the election. So, one of the things that has kind of bothered me about a bit of the coverage, not on CJAD, but I've seen elsewhere, some of the analysis goes back to what we talked about last week, that people are referring this to as Paul Martin's old riding, like LaSalle Lamard. So really what is key that people are missing is it is part of it. But the big chunk that people are not looking at that Paul Martin did not represent is Verdun. And Verdun, well, it's never gone PQ. It has had a very strong PQ organization in the past. And it was also part of the Jean Lebert riding. Now, let's not forget, and after this liberal thing feels a little bit like the Martin, the end of times of those days, of which I was around. And, in 2006 election, it went Thierry Saint-Cyr with the Bloc Québécois. So he held that riding for 5 years until the Orange Wave. So Verdun is sort of the interesting thing. And one of the things that I looked at, because I knew that Laura Palestini has been a municipal councillor for many terms in LaSalle. But as I mentioned, there's part of LaSalle that is not in the riding. They were not voting yesterday. And unfortunately, that was where she actually represents. So she was a councillor for the Cecil P. Newman district. And the part of it that was voting yesterday is really Sault Ste. Louis. So I was a bit of a head scratcher. So I'm looking at your turnout, 40%. Yeah, that's okay. 248 votes differentiating them. There's a lot of analysis to be done on all of the different campaigns. But, I would really like to get a look into Liberal list and see what the Liberal turnout was, because that's going to be key. I mean, they put everything into it. All the parties put everything into it. You saw they were on the ground. I mean, I don't even know, was it a 30-minute interview you did with the Prime Minister on Friday afternoon?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm wondering, to your point about everyone was on the ground because this was an important by-election, what I kind of floated before when we asked about, the voter turnout was, do you think it might have made a difference if, in fact, the Prime Minister, rather than just coming here and doing an interview on the radio live that day, had actually gone into the riding, walked the streets, knocked on a couple of doors, shook a few hands, kissed a few babies, that kind of thing. Do you think that would have made a difference if they only lost by a couple of hundred votes?
I think that those Liberals that could have been swayed had already decided to stay home. I honestly don't think that your interview cost them the riding. So if you have any
nice.
Guilt or anything like that, don't let go of it.
No, I have no guilt, obviously. But what I'm asking is, when every other political party leader, they were all there at one point or another, right? Jagmeet Singh was there. I think Pierre Poilievre was there. And I know, for example, Yves-François Blanchet was there. Trudeau, by design, was not there. His picture was not on the poster, so, basically promoting Laura Palestini. I'm asking, do you think, out of the box here, would that have made a difference had he actually shown up? And I know he's, what was the word? He's like radioactive as far as some people are concerned, but do you think it might have made a difference?
Well, it might have made a difference. I know he did some mainstreaming with a candidate on Wellington at the beginning of the election, so he has been there. I'm actually surprised. I didn't know that he hadn't actually gone on the ground on. I know he was in St. Anne's making an announcement in Lac St. Louis, but for something else. But I'm quite surprised that he didn't go, but maybe it was a calculation. And I don't think a lot of the calculations that, unfortunately, the PLCQ have been making in Quebec lately are some of the best ones. I mean, they didn't even come up with the candidate. And I mean, by all means, she was very hardworking from what I can tell, but they only named that candidate in mid-July. That left Craig 2 full months to campaign. And he's a very good campaigner. I mean, we know what happened. We discussed it last week about the famous
And he's
you
well
know.
known in the riding as well, so he had an advantage going in, I think, as well. You're right. I agree. I would ask you as well, Jennifer, with respect to Yves Blanchette coming out today. I don't know if you heard the clip of him saying this win for the Bloc. He figures this will augur well for Anglos, perhaps, considering voting for the Bloc. And I'm thinking, what has he been smoking? How do you even compare? How does 1 and 1 equal 3?
Well, he's kind of funny. I heard him last week on CJAD, and I found him rather charming. I don't agree with a lot of his stuff, but he's quite charming. But if he wants to keep, now he's got two MPs on the island of Montreal. That's great for him, 33 in total. But if he wants to reach out to Anglos in Montreal, he should keep the other MP away, because he used to be the head of the SSJB, and he doesn't much like us.
Okay.
So, I think he's going to have to weigh out the interest of his caucus by making any advances. But I mean, look, there was a young candidate. He was out. I saw him. I think it was maybe in the Gazette, talking to people at the door, saying, "Lend me your vote. You can fire me." And I worked in government relations. I've been a lobbyist. I've been an election organizer. I've done lots of things. And let me tell you, they work hard. The Bloc Québécois, Parti Québécois, they work hard in their ridings. So, hey, maybe people will be pleasantly surprised. I'm not sure he's going to hold on to it, but,
Okay. But why would he say something like, I think based on our win, this maybe is a chance for us to reach out to Anglophones, as if somehow Anglophones took him over the top?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, maybe there were a couple of Anglos. Maybe they got some nice messages at the door. We don't know what the candidate heard at the door. I mean, he had a message for Anglos. I mean, he was asked if their website was in bilingue, and no, it wasn't. But he said he thought it was. But I guess he made a good impression.
Is that true? He was asked if his website is bilingual, and he said no.
He said yes. I think it is. But it turns out that it wasn't. It was reported in the.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, I understand you were out at Bishop's University. Explain what this thing you were at is.
Okay, so Bishop's Forum is this great thing that's put on every year. So this year was the 7th anniversary, and my client is Guy Rex Rogers. One of my clients is Guy Rex Rogers, and he made that great film, What We Choose to Remember. So there was a screening at the Bishop's Forum. So it's a bunch of kids. So basically it's about, between 50 and 100 youth from across Quebec that are gathered at Bishop's. They don't have to be university students, and they go. It's really wonderful. And it's a leadership forum. It teaches them how to do all kinds of things, and it's a beautiful event. I decided to go and wear my historic Quebec Anglo shirt as part of the event. And nobody had ever seen this before, because maybe they're a bit young, because these kids were all, quite, I'm saying youth, they were majority age, of course, but it was a hit. So, Aaron, you might want to do a second run of that and market it to the young people.
Historic Quebec. That go back that's 4 years ago, 5 years ago, isn't it?
2019. I bought 3 of them.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for your support. Okay. Listen, I think I don't know if there's one thing you wanted to bring up, and I think that's a José Legault column. I don't think most people saw this morning. So this is Jean-François Roberge. What did he go off about now?
Well, it's about the ad he was going off in French. He's basically saying that, the Quebec government is French because the Quebec people are French, and about the ad that you talked about yesterday. So the famous ad where il faut parler français 4 fois par jour or something like that, and we could do this in French if you want, Aaron.
Sometime. Yeah, bonjour seulement. On n'a pas besoin de notre mot, right? Bonjour, ça suffit.
Exactly. Okay. And so, but basically she went after the ad on a few elements. Like first she said that their Bill 96 wasn't strong enough, it didn't go into CJEP. So I'll differ with her on that. But that the ad itself was poorly put together, that just repeating the word ça all the time showed a lack of vocabulary. And also to remind him that, Quebec, that the minority, like Quebec Anglophones and allophones, are also the Québécois. So I thought that was a nice, refreshing change, and so it's good to know. And but yeah, so the ad is not going over well with everybody.
The campaign. Did she also get him? Did Jean-François Roberge actually say that he believes Anglophones are Québécois as well, or not?
Oh, he'll never say that. I don't think. We know differently.
We'll leave it at that.